Hello and welcome back to the Ref-Horrendumb. I am your host, Big John, and we are joined today with Jesse J. Jesse, how you doing?
Good. How about you?
I'm doing great. Training camps are underway across the NFL. Boxing just delivered a retirement and a statement performance. Identity talk is spilling out of the ring, and we're going to cover it all. From the UFL to NFL, from the NFL to boxing, and then we close with the NBA. So first and foremost, players commonly projected for forward jumps include third-year quarterbacks with improved supporting cast, young receivers, expanded opportunity, and edge rushers moving into favorable schemes. Regression candidates typically include aging skill players coming off of heavy workloads and defensive backs showing decline in straight line speed or change direction ability. On the UFL side, more than 20 players from the 2026 season have already signed with the NFL teams. With additional workouts ongoing, multiple NFL head coaches, including Sean Payton and Dan Campbell, have publicly described the UFL as a legitimate development pipeline that produces roster-ready talent. The league is no longer viewed as a novelty. Front offices are actively using it. Jess, what do you think about that?
I think one of the most important things for the UFL is just carving out its niche. It's never going to be as popular as the NFL, but what you need for it to be is a viable spring league, which means that the players that play in that league have a chance to at least make a NFL roster or at least get into a training camp. That's really all you're asking for the UFL, is to be able to be, it needs to be a sustainable league, and the players in that league at least need to have an opportunity to get on with some of these NFL rosters. And if it can do those two things, it's successful.
Did you watch any of the UFL this season?
I watched a little bit of the UFL this season.
What was your observation?
In general, I think the most important thing I saw was some of those teams are going to try different quarterbacks. And I think that's important because we're seeing teams use 2 and 3 different quarterbacks a season now. And the only place where quarterbacks are going to get reps is going to be the UFL. So I think from a quarterback standpoint and from an offensive line and defensive line standpoint, that's where the UFL is the most important. Getting quarterbacks reps, getting offensive linemen and defensive linemen reps. Because outside of preseason games and some parts of training camp, you're not really going to see them get as much work. That's really the main work they're getting, are preseason games or UFL games.
So do you think that the backup quarterbacks in the NFL should start the UFL season? Do you think that should be something negotiated between them so they can see where these quarterbacks actually, they can see what these quarterbacks actually produce on a full season style, full game or season long? How do you say?
Yeah, I understand what you're trying to say. Yeah, in a way, I think the NFL probably should bring back something like an NFL Europe. And in this case, maybe just even have a working relationship with UFL where teams can send some of their players to UFL teams to get work. I think you would have to negotiate with the players' unions and the leagues, and that might be what's stopping it, is just because it's kind of difficult like that. But in general, I think some of these teams would be better off sending some of their quarterbacks, offensive linemen, defensive linemen, to go work with UFL teams to get the actual reps. I feel like there's enough talent now that there wasn't maybe in like 2004, 2005, 2006 when the NFL Europe wasn't really when NFL Europe was a thing, but I don't think the talent depth was there for it. Now I think it is, in terms of players that are gonna play in the NFL yearly and going to like quarterback in the year, quarterback for teams yearly. We see multiple teams that went through 3 quarters. The Chiefs used 4 quarterbacks actually. So even teams that are good, bad, and just kind of in the middle are using more and more players. And I think quarterback is really where you're seeing a massive drop off, because there's just a lot of these guys just don't get the reps they need to improve.
Not everybody is Taysom Hill, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you see is that you might have 20 NFL caliber quarterbacks. There's about 12 of them that are they could get you through a game and maybe a couple weeks, but they're probably not full-time guys. And then there's very few backups that are capable of actually playing real games. And that's really, if the NFL, if they're going to continue to add more games to the season, they're going to need more viable backup quarterbacks.
I agree. Okay, Jess, let's move on to the next segment. The Chicago Bears rookies report, and let's talk about Caleb Williams. Rookies and quarterbacks reported at Halas Hall this weekend. Veterans arrive shortly. First full practices are imminent. This is the real beginning of the Bears' 2026 season. Caleb Williams is in year 3. Numbers matter more than any other storyline in Chicago right now. Year 1 is about surviving the speed of the league, right, Jess? Year 2 is about showing, can you produce and win games? And year 3 is when the league stops giving developmental excuses and it starts demanding consistency and elevation on the entire offense. Well, last season, he threw for nearly 4,000 yards and 27 touchdowns and delivered a playoff victory. That's real progress, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I think the big thing with Caleb Williams coming into year 3 is that he's got to be more consistent as a passer. I believe his completion percentage was under 60%. I think it was like 57 or 58%. That's got to be higher. That's got to take a jump to 62, 63. He doesn't need to be 70, but he needs to take a considerable jump if the Bears are going to take the next step, because that's one of the things that cost them in the playoffs was he got into overtime because he's able to make big plays. But in the playoffs, he and the receiver weren't on the same page. He forced the throw, and the interception is what ended their season, basically.
Well, I expect him to do better because you figure you have Rome Odunze he enters year 2 with higher expectations. The new rookie class has talent at multiple positions. The offensive line, however, there's still a lot of legitimate questions there. If that unit does not hold up, then that means that he's going to be scrambling like a you-know-what, and they're going to have to go maybe to the UFL to find guys who've been practicing who could maybe fill in those roles or go to their practice squads to supplement what they're not getting. Don't you think?
I think the biggest thing for the Bears is that they need Luther Burden to take the next step. They need Colson Loveland at tight end to take the next step. Rome Odunze, they need him to be healthy and productive. If those things happen, combined with DeAndre Swift and some of the other guys they have on offense, I feel like they should have enough to win games and have a chance to make a deep run in the playoffs. It's going to be a matter of Caleb Williams getting better and more consistent, their weapons staying healthy and being productive. And then defensively, I think they probably need a little bit more with their pass rush, but that's something you could always maybe make a trade for during the season. But in terms of how far this team's going to go, it's going to be based off Caleb Williams and him being more consistent and some of their young weapons taking a step forward.
Well, I think several things to look at, in this training camp is, how are the practices going to go? Are they going to be frequent downfield attempts versus, safe checkdowns? How quickly is the coaching staff going to remove the training wheels and just have them go all out? I think that's important because he establishes quicker versus doing it later. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I just think in general with the Bears, I think they're going to have questions like every other team, but with how good I think their roster is and how good I think the ceiling of Caleb Williams' talent is, they just need him to be more consistent, and they need their young weapons to be better than what they were last year because they're close. They had a chance to win that game versus the Rams last year, and now you need to build on that. So that means Caleb Williams is going to have to take a big step forward. They will go as far as Caleb Williams will take them.
I agree, and they've already invested in the draft capital, free agent resources, and organizational patience in Caleb Williams. And like we said earlier, year 3 is when the investment is expected to produce clear week-to-week returns. If the same up and down decision-making appears with the same explanations, then the external conversation will shift rapidly, and then he'll be the one maybe on the chopping block. Or it's going to be the coach. What do you think about their head coach? And real quick, before you answer that, I believe they are on Hard Knocks this year.
I believe it. I think it's Seattle, actually.
Seattle? Okay.
But I like Ben Johnson. I think he's a really bright, young offensive coach. I think at times they maybe get a little bit too cute, but like that's any offensive mind. Think of all the great offensive minds you've seen. At times they get a little bit too confident in what they can design, and sometimes you just got to rely on your players, and you don't want to get too cute at times, which I mean, it's a cliche thing, but we've seen it before with great offensive coaches. But in general, I think he's a really good, bright mind, and I think you can win a championship with that kind of coach.
Okay. Let's move on to Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. So Jordan Love already signed a 4-year, $220 million extension in 2024 with substantial guarantees. He's under contract. The continued discussion exists because the quarterback market never remains static. Any first thoughts before we dive into this about Jordan Love and his performance from last year?
I think the biggest thing with Jordan Love is they need him to be more consistent from a game-to-game basis. When people say average, a lot of the time it's because a player normally plays a certain ceiling. And
do you think he's an average quarterback?
I do. I think he's an average quarterback, but he's not average in the sense of like something we'd say like with Kirk Cousins or like an Andy Dalton, where at times their level of play was just very consistent, but they didn't have a lot of peaks and valleys. Jordan Love is average in the sense that he has a lot of peaks and valleys. 3 games he'll be great. 3 games he'll look okay. 3 games he'll look absolutely terrible. And then it's a spinning wheel of you don't really know what you're going to get from him from week to week. 1 month he'll look good. 1 month he'll look just fine. And then the next one he'll just be a disaster. You can't really get a good feel for him.
I don't think it's because of him. I don't think it's his fault necessarily. Yeah, sometimes he makes stupid mistakes. But I also think, 1, he's young. But 2, I'm not a fan of Matt LaFleur. I know you are. I don't like him.
My question to that, though, is just he was getting consistency out of Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers was having them in position to win games and be in the playoffs, and not just be in the playoffs, but have home field advantage in the playoffs. Yeah, at times they didn't win those games, but the level of play from Aaron Rodgers was more consistent what we're seeing out of Jordan Love. Jordan Love, I think they're having to kind of game plan around him because they don't really know what to expect from him from week to week. He's very inconsistent, and I think that really hurts a play caller when you don't know what to expect from your quarterback from week to week, because in game, you have to kind of change what you're going to do. If he's erratic and he can't complete basic passes, then you have to kind of scale the offense back. Or if he's going, then you unleash everything. But it's kind of hard to have a quarterback when you don't know what you're going to get from him from week to week.
But there's no doubt about it. See, to me, I don't think he's just average, but I think he is above average, and I think that he is a legitimate franchise quarterback.
I don't think his talent is average, but if you look at his play in general and just how much inconsistent play he has, that's also an average quarterback. An average quarterback just isn't somebody who doesn't have a lot of peaks and valleys in his game, and he just is very consistent, but he's maybe not great. An average player is just sometimes you're really good, sometimes you're bad, and then sometimes you're not really much of a difference maker. And that's the thing with Jordan Love, is that he has talent where you see him and he can make high level throws and be good, but then he has those stretches where he's just really bad.
What's the ceiling for the Packers this year?
They could win the Super Bowl. They have a good enough team. If Micah Parsons gets healthy, I think they could win the Super Bowl this year.
Okay, with that statement you made there, who is the leader of the Green Bay Packers?
That's kind of the issue, is I don't necessarily see Jordan Love as the leader of that team. I also don't really see it being Micah Parsons either.
Who?
I don't see it being Jordan Love or Micah Parsons. I don't really think they have a leader.
I would definitely say Jordan Love, and I would never say Micah Parsons. I just don't think that Micah Parsons is as good as everybody thinks he is.
I don't think Jordan Love is good enough to be the leader of that team, though. Like, the leader of your team is typically going to be your best, most consistent players. And with the Packers, that's not what Jordan Love is for them.
Okay. Well, that's a hot take, Jess. Let's move on. Brandon Aiyuk and the contract standoff and the trade rumors. The situation remains unresolved and increasingly one-sided. Guarantees in Aiyuk's 2026 contract have been voided. He has been on the reserve / left squad list. Do you know anything about this, Jess?
With Brandon Aiyuk, I just think it's pretty simple. He doesn't want to be there. I think he lost faith for whatever reason in that coaching staff and training staff and kind of the whole organization. And the 49ers know he wants to leave and that he's probably going to go to the Washington Commanders if they were to let him go. And so they're just kind of in a standoff. And I don't know. I feel like you'd want to have it resolved with all the stuff they have going on, but it seems like they're just going to let him. They're going to basically try to force him into retirement, and they're not going to try to let him go. I think they're both handling it very poorly, and it's a bad look for both sides.
Well, on that note, Aiyuk has publicly signaled many times already he's ready to leave. He's ready to get out of there. And you mentioned that the Commanders might be the team that he goes to. Well, he's got history with Jaden Daniels. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe they played together in college.
Yeah. And is this more on the coaching or is it more on the GM? Is the head coach the GM too, Jess, or no? Am I getting that wrong?
No, John Lynch is the GM. Kyle Shanahan is the head coach. I think it's an organizational philosophy they have that, hey, he's disgruntled, but we're not going to cut him because we're not going to give him what he wants. But I just think sometimes things like that become too big of a distraction, and I think it's a big distraction for him right now.
So some realistic outcomes at this stage. Huh?
No, I was just going to say, I think it's just one of those things where they're kind of in a game of chicken or a game of who's going to blink first, and they're both staying their ground. And ultimately, though, I just feel like if you're the 49ers, you just want to be done with it.
I mean, I agree. Now, those are some of the outcomes that I was about to mention. A trade for modest compensation, eventual release, or continued stalemate in which both sides absorb the damage. This is a textbook case of money conversation and a personal relationship deteriorating at the same time. Next, let's go ahead and go to Saquon Barkley and the Philadelphia Eagles. He's still running back number one. Would you agree, Jess? I mean, he had a regression last year from his 2024 season where he got over 2,000 yards. Last year, he still got over 1,000 yards. Where do you see Saquon being this year? Are they still going to go ahead and make him the workhorse of that team, or someone just going to step in and have a balance?
I think Saquon, if he's healthy, is still the best running back in the league, but considering how many carries he had in 2024, that may not be something we ever see again, just given how many touches he had.
Okay, can you see him having a performance 2025, or can you see him having the performance of 2024?
I mean, I don't think you really know with running backs from year to year.
He's 29.
Sometimes they can play longer like Derrick Henry. Sometimes they don't. I think with a running back, you have to actually see him on the field to tell if they still have it or not. I think if the Eagles are going to be a Super Bowl contending team, they need Saquon to be the best player on that team. They're going to need him to have a huge year. If he doesn't, it's going to probably be a rougher year for the Eagles. Not that they can't make the playoffs, but I just don't think they're a championship level team if Saquon's not going to be the driving force of that team.
Do you
especially
still have
without A.J. Brown now?
Reservations about their head coach?
Well, that's part of the reason why Saquon has to be
You have not liked him, because of his antics towards the Chiefs, but you have not liked him for years now. I have not been the biggest hater on him, but I understand where you come from because he is just very passive-aggressive, or he's maybe aggressive.
One of the reasons though is that the Eagles have one of the better front offices in the NFL, and they get talent in there pretty much every year, and they hit on a lot of their draft picks. So you have a lot of talent. The problem is in the margins. When games get down to in the margins, that's where you can see the issues with Nick Sirianni. When you have all the talent and you're just running through teams like their 2024 year and you win the Super Bowl, that's great. But they lost the playoff game to Brock Purdy, the 49ers, and a bunch of backups because I don't think their coaching staff was really prepared to maximize the talent they had on the team. And now you trade A.J. Brown and you're another year into Saquon Barkley, and he's another year older. So how is the coaching staff going to maximize the team they have? And I just don't think Sirianni's built for that.
Just hitting hot take after hot take, Jess. I can't wait to share this. Okay, let's get to something that we know very well, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are in St. Joseph. Patrick Mahomes has been fully cleared after ACL recovery and is participating without restriction. The organization is operating in a standard methodical fashion, detail-oriented, process-driven, and focused on incremental improvement. Key camp questions center on the offensive line depth. Probably something you're going to hit on, the skill position health, and whether the supporting cast remains at the championship threshold. Kansas City opens camp as a team that still expects to be a contender. Are the Chiefs going to be a viable threat to make the Super Bowl this year again?
I think the Chiefs have the widest margin of what they could be. I think they might be like a 6-11, 7-10 team again, or I think they might have a chance to like make the Super Bowl. I just don't really have a good feel for them. I don't actually think offensive line is a big issue with them. I think that's overblown. I think the biggest issue this team is going to have is their lack of pass rush. They don't really have much talent at edge rusher, and they have a really young secondary. And then on offense, you look at receiving. The receiving room is just bad. I don't love it. You have Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, and Tyquan Thornton. After that, the next four guys in line have like a combined 6 catches for their career. So I think the receiving room is an issue. I think the coaching staff in terms of like their offensive personnel and Andy Reid might be an issue. And then defensively, they're really young and they don't have a lot of proven pass rush. So you have a lot of young players, which means your upside could be pretty high, but your floor is unknown.
Well, what's the floor for the Chiefs right now? What's the floor for the Chiefs?
6-11, 7-10.
Okay. And their ceiling?
I think 13 or 14 wins, probably. But that's going to have to be through running the ball, playing defense, and Mahomes having a really efficient year.
Okay, so what do you think about our run game? How's that looking right now?
I think with the O-line they have in Kenneth Walker, if he can stay healthy the entire year, I think they could have one of the better running games in the league. Part of the issue with that, though, is that you're going to need Andy Reid to be able to consistently run the ball and take pressure off Patrick Mahomes. They're going to have a varied run game that can last an entire year. And then they're going to have some type of play action game, which the last few years, they've had no play action game whatsoever. They've been the worst in the league in terms of running play action and executing with play action. So that's something that Andy Reid's going to have to really hone into.
Okay, what about our special teams? How is Butker looking? Are we ready to move past Butker, or is he still that guy?
I think this is a big year for Harrison Butker because I think if they get into the middle of the year and he's still having issues, you have to start bringing in kickers and you have to try something different. This team, I don't think their margin of error is going to be that big. I think it's going to be a lot like it has been the last couple years where you're going to win games or lose games based off of execution late. And if Butker is missing field goals, then you're going to probably have to do something. It's going to be them eating some money to try to get rid of him or just put him on IR or do something with him. But he can't be as bad as he was last year.
Yeah, he was horrible last year.
And you just didn't trust him at all. And there were games in which it's not just missing kicks, it's also in the new kickoff rule where you need your kicker to be precise, and he was not, and also kick the ball out of bounds a couple times, which really hurt you. Like, you're going to need him to be better than he was last year.
It's kind of crazy. Over the past several years, kickers have been some of the biggest stories in the league, and then in a sense of a positive way. Well, now you figure you have Harrison Butker, who did not do good last year. It was either last year or the year before, where you had the kicker from Baltimore, who had the whole scandal about him doing inappropriate things and everything else like that, who went downhill. Then you had the kicker from Atlanta, Chin, I believe his name was, or I can't remember. You know who I'm talking about? Koo. Yeah. He went downhill. So, I mean, those 3 guys are arguably at one time the top 3 kickers in the league. And they kind of had a catastrophe over the past couple of years. I'm interested to see how Butker does, and if he doesn't do well early on, we need to get rid of him.
Yeah, I just think with
any high that you've heard that is legitimate about Tyreek Hill coming to the Kansas City Chiefs?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to expect Tyreek Hill in Kansas City, I wouldn't expect for him to be, if he even plays this year, I wouldn't expect it to the second half of the season based off how serious his knee injury was. I don't think he's going to play this year, and if he does, expect it at the end of the year. And I don't really know how much he's going to give you, but considering the lack of depth they have at receiver, they might make that move anyways just to see what he has. Even if you know he's not 100%, you might just make that move based off of them having a lack of depth at receiver.
I still say, to me, he's still one of the best wide receivers in the league, and it wasn't his fault that he was in Miami. Miami's not a good organization anyways. I still think Tyreek Hill can play. I look for us to sign him by, early on. And I think he's going to play early on. I think this is still the odds-on favorite for him to come to Kansas City versus any other team. I think the next one is the Baltimore Ravens. And then we get down to Travis Kelce. I'm not sold on Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce should have retired 2 years ago.
I mean, Travis Kelce he's still a good player. The problem is they're having to give him target.
All last year. You dogged him last year and you dogged him the year before. Yeah, and you said he's washed and he doesn't need to be there anymore.
He's not as good anymore. But if he's your third best target, yes, he's still a good player. He had, 800 yards last year, and Mahomes didn't play in the last 3 games. The issue with Travis Kelce is that they're giving him 100 targets, and that's just not who he is anymore. He's a guy that could give you 700-800 yards, 4 or 5 touchdowns. But if you're asking him to lead your team in targets and have it be your leading receiver, you're just not going to be good. They need Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy to be in front of him in terms of yards and catches if this team wants to be any good. If Travis Kelce's their leading receiver again, this team's going to win 6 games again.
Okay. I'm with you 100%. Okay, the Los Angeles Rams, Jess. The Rams sit at the clear preseason Super Bowl favorites in the majority of most sports books, Jesus, following the acquisition of Myles Garrett. Matthew Stafford's return combined with the true high-end edge presence has moved them to the top of the futures board. What do you think about Myles Garrett, Jess? What do you think about him going to the Rams? What do you think about somebody else coming out of retirement to join with the Rams?
Yeah, so Aaron Donald would be interesting. I just don't know how much he would be able to give you, considering he's not played in a few years. That I think it's not even just, is he in shape? It's, is he going to be ready to hold up through an entire 20-game season? Because they're going to be a playoff team. So it's the entire season plus the playoffs. Is he going to be ready to play? And that, to me, would be the bigger issue.
What's the ceiling for the Rams, though? I'm the biggest Matthew Stafford fan there is. I didn't mean to cut you off. You finish your statement, then answer my question.
No, I'm just saying, the Rams have a ton of talent, but I think they have a lot of kind of untrustworthy players. Like Matt Stafford is a really good quarterback, but he's going to be 38 and he's had back issues, and you weren't entirely sure if he was coming back this year. And so he's coming back. You have Puka Nacua, who's having a lot of issues himself in his personal life. You have Devontae Adams at receiver, who had a ton of hamstring issues and was barely getting through games last year. So I think defensively, they went out and they made a lot of improvements, and I think their defense has a lot of talent. But if you look at their offense, I think they have a lot of players that aren't 100% reliable due to age or just injuries and things in their personal life. And then on defense, I still think if you can run the ball and go play action to your tight end, you could beat them. I feel like the Seattle Seahawks are still built to beat a team like the Rams.
Okay. Let's go ahead and move to boxing. So Canelo Álvarez made some huge statements over the past day and a half. Canelo Álvarez was asked whether Ryan Garcia could become the next Mexican boxing star. His response, controversial. He said, no, not Mexican, Mexican-American. He later stated that Garcia possesses the talent and charisma to become the next Mexican-American star, but he declined to label him the next Mexican star. The comments immediately generated widespread discussion. One side interpreted the distinction as an accurate reflection of different lived experiences and culture formation. Jess, we're both Mexican-American. I'm Puerto Rican. You got some of that, I'm sure, in your blood, too. Well, I'm Mexican and Puerto Rican. What do you think about that statement? Is he not Mexican enough? I've been told that myself. I'm not dark enough. I don't look Mexican. I look white. I look too Spanish. I've faced those things my whole life, and you're darker than I am. Any takes on that?
I feel like what Canelo was saying was like pretty accurate. I feel like that was a language thing where it's just like it's being translated from Spanish to English. I feel like I know what he was trying to say, though, in terms of that Ryan Garcia is he'd be more of a Mexican American icon than maybe like he'd be bigger as a Mexican American icon than he would be a Mexican icon. I feel like what he was going, I feel like he was trying to differentiate that being in Mexico and being a person living in Mexico, being an icon, being a national hero, as opposed to living in the United States, where he would be the bigger personality in the United States than he would in Mexico.
Okay, well, see, reminds me of that scene in Selena where he says, they don't think that we're Mexican enough. You don't speak Spanish like them. You don't speak this. You don't live like that. That's true. At the same time, see, this is where it triggers me, because it's like you're saying that we're not good enough, but yet you still want to come here and assimilate to America's culture. And that rubs me the wrong way. I don't think it's a language barrier. I think he meant exactly how it came off to be. We're not them. I mean, he had a lot of detractors saying today that they didn't agree with him. A lot of boxers in the sport did not like his comments. Me, as a spectator, I didn't find them too warm. Stick with boxing.
Yeah, in general, though, I was gonna say in general, I just think there's different. There's gonna be a difference in if you grow up in Mexico and you are a Mexican icon like Canelo, and then someone who is Mexican American, who I think is gonna obviously be bigger in America because he is American, as opposed to being the Mexican American icon in Mexico. I feel like I understand what he was trying to say. Maybe he didn't say it as eloquent as people maybe would have wanted or as descriptive, but I feel like I understand what he was trying to go for.
1 second, Jess. Okay, I was trying to find the comments made by Clarissa Shields, but we'll go ahead and move forward. So Errol Spence lost a unanimous decision to Tim Tszyu in Sydney last night, and he announced his retirement in the immediate aftermath. He cited financial security, family, and the physical reality of the performance. Observers, including peers, noted visible decline in speed, balance, and overall sharpness from the opening rounds. The retirement closes a career that included notable wins and a period as a unified champion. The manner of the exit, clear, decisive, without prolonged denial, has drawn both respect and pointed commentary about the physical toll accumulated over the past 2 years, especially with him not boxing. On the same weekend, Anthony Joshua recorded a victory. Anthony Joshua in the first 20 seconds was knocked down yesterday. In the second round, he came back to win with a knockout. Interesting weekend of boxing. Jess, any comments on those?
No, I don't think retiring was anything too crazy. I mean, you look, he's 36, and you come back and you're fighting. I feel like this happens with boxers a lot. Is you'll see them come back and then they'll fight and then they'll retire and then ultimately they'll probably come back and fight a couple more times. I just feel like that's part of boxing.
Okay, now let's go to the NBA. So Klay Thompson's in Dallas. Just first off, does that read a championship team to you or no?
The Mavericks?
Is that what I said?
Yeah, the Dallas Mavericks, are they a championship team?
Yeah.
No. I don't think they're close to being a championship team. I think they have a guy in Cooper Flag who I think you can build a championship team around. They're years away from being a real contender. I think they're going to need to get rid of some of their bad contracts. They're going to need to get some draft pick capital and try to just get more youth on that team.
Can the Mavs make the playoffs?
I still think they're 10 teams make the playoffs, or you can make the play-in if you're the 8th through, or is it I believe it's a 7th through 10 seed make the play-in the NBA playoffs. So I think It's possible they could do that, but I don't really think they have that high of a ceiling. I think their ceiling is probably 9th or 10th seed in the play-in tournament.
Are the Mavs better than the Lakers right now on paper?
I don't think so. I think the Lakers are probably like a 40-ish win team. They're average. I think the Mavericks are probably like a 30 to 35 win team.
So I went off the other day about, speaking of the Lakers, on LeBron James, of how his decision affected the NBA. Where do you see, what's the ceiling for the 76ers? Because you have Embiid, you have him, and you have
Jaylen Brown.
Jaylen Brown, thank you so much. I mean, I think you have 3 people who want the ball at all times, and they're high usage players. I don't think it's going to work, Jess.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult, and you're going to need Embiid to be healthy for at least the part of the season so that they can build some chemistry together.
Well, that's the caveat to the whole thing, him being healthy, because he's not healthy all the time.
Well, that's also one of the reasons, though, why I think having Jaylen Brown is not going to be that big of an issue, is because Embiid is probably going to be hurt and miss 30 to 40 games. So I think you need Jaylen Brown for that reason, because I think he is the best player on that team.
You think Jaylen Brown is the best player on that team?
Yeah, I think he's better. He's better than Tyrese Maxey, and I think he's maybe not better than Embiid, but he's more reliable than Embiid. He's going to be there every week.
Okay. And I see that Tyrese Maxey being the better overall player, to be honest with you. He's young. He has a lot more to learn, but I still think he's the best player on that team. That's me personally.
I would just say Jaylen Brown's more proven, though. He was the finals MVP for the Celtics when they won the championship.
I mean, that's fair.
He's played at a higher level than what Maxey has played, even though I think Maxey's a really good player. So I think you have Jaylen Brown and Maxey who are going to probably be the guys handling the ball mostly for the 76ers. I think Embiid will be a big part when he is there, but you cannot expect him to be there the entire time. And I think LeBron, one of the reasons why he wanted to play for the 76ers is because he wanted to take some pressure off himself, and he wanted to not have to be one of the 2 to 3 best players on a team. And on the 76ers, if everybody's healthy, he's probably the 4th best player on that team. And I think if the 76ers can stay healthy, I think they are a Eastern Conference Finals caliber team. I don't think they're better than the Knicks, just because I think the Knicks have better chemistry and I think their pieces fit better.
Can you see the Knicks repeating a championship win next year?
I think they have a really good chance to, because their pieces fit together and they have chemistry. And looking at the East, I just don't think the East is that strong, and I think they're clearly the best team in the East.
They measure up to Miami. I mean, Miami got Giannis. What do you think about that acquisition?
Yeah, I think Miami getting Giannis was big, but I just don't think the guard play is good enough to beat Brunson, to beat Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges. I think the Knicks pieces just fit better. They have more chemistry. They've won together. I think the team that actually would give the Knicks the most trouble if Tyrese Haliburton is healthy is the Pacers, just because of the way they play and the way they kind of throw bodies at you. But outside of that, I don't think any of the teams in the East really match up well versus the Knicks.
What do you think about the Heat getting rid of Tyler Hero? I was shocked.
I think that Bam and Tyler Hero have had some issues for a while. So as soon as they had a chance to get Giannis, they were fully ready to give up Tyler Hero to get Giannis. With Miami, I don't think their guards are that good. And I think, yeah, you have two bigs that are really good, but who are going to be the guards who are making tough shots? I just don't think they have any of those guys.
Okay. And one of the last things on the NBA we can do is John Morant went to Portland. Any thoughts on that?
Say that again.
John Morant
with the Trailblazers. Yeah, he feels like a guy who's going to be a big what if guy, that he's already been traded. He really wasn't traded for much. You're hoping he gets back to his form as an all-star and one of the better players in the league, but I don't know at this point if you can expect it with some of the issues he's had and then some of the injuries he's had. But I think Portland is an interesting place for him because they have a bunch of young players, and that should be a fun playoff team. I just don't know if you can expect Morant to get back to where he was.
Okay, can you tell me the last thing we'll cover? What do you know about this whole Kawhi Leonard investigation?
So basically what happened is that it's being alleged that when the Clippers signed Kawhi Leonard, they circumvented the salary cap and paid him more than what. So let's say you're making $40 million a year,
mm-hmm.
and it goes $40 million against the cap. What's being alleged is that they were paying him under the table, and that they were putting money into charities so that those charities could then pay Kawhi Leonard to circumvent the salary cap in the NBA.
So are they guilty of it or what?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you could prove it in a court of law if they're guilty, but if you look at a lot of the circumstantial evidence and the charities that he was associated with, the charities that got money directly from the Clippers owner right after Kawhi signed with the team, and then how much money that owner put into the charities that magically got paid to Kawhi. Because I believe it was two payments of $10 million or something like that, which would be 20 total, and that's exactly what Kawhi got for signing with or for doing work with the charity and becoming like an ambassador. So I do think that is a little bit suspicious. You're muted.
Are there any things that you want to talk about regarding the Utah Jazz, Donovan Mitchell, the Cavaliers, anything of that nature, or no?
So basically, when it comes to the Cavs, I think the Cavs that's a team that I think really could have used LeBron, just because I think he would have made them a much better team. I think he would give them a shot to at least give the Knicks a run for their money. So them not getting him, that's tough for them. And then Utah, I think, has, especially with drafting Darren Peterson, I feel like they have a nice young core. I just think they're probably a couple years away, because I believe it's Ace Bailey, Darren Peterson. I know I forget what his name is, but they made a trade for one of the forwards from Memphis. They have a nice young core. I don't think they might be a fringe playoff team, but they're probably like a year away from really being a dangerous team.
Okay, just anything else you want to talk about? We cover boxing, NBA, NFL, UFL, anything?
That's as much as I can kind of think of for right now. I think in general, though, I think this is a pretty exciting time of the year as you're starting to see training camps start up. For me, it'll be interesting to see. I'm interested to see who some of the veterans sign with, like a Stephon Diggs, Deebo Samuel, Von Miller, I think, is still out there. There's some veteran edge rushers that are still available. These, I would say, in the next 2 weeks is probably when we're going to start seeing some of those guys get signed. And they're not maybe as impactful players as they've been in the past, but I still think a lot of those guys are good enough that they can help a team win.
Could the Chiefs get somebody like Stephon Diggs?
I don't think it'd be Stephon Diggs. I think it'd be more someone like Deebo Samuel.
Okay. I don't watch baseball anymore. I'm still on strike because they haven't put the guys in the Hall of Fame yet. Is there any news on the baseball front that we should talk about?
So with baseball, I mean, you're probably going to see a lockout next year because there's a lot of disagreement. The owners want a salary cap. The players obviously don't want a salary cap. They'd like a salary floor, but not a cap. I think baseball, at least at the very minimum, needs a salary floor just because some of these teams just aren't spending money to be competitive at all. I think they probably do need a cap too, because some of these teams, even if they could spend a bunch of money, are probably not going to be able to spend the $300-400 million that like the Dodgers and the Yankees could. Also, some of these deferred payments with like Shohei Ohtani, where a lot of his payments are deferred down the road, they need to get rid of that. I think having a true cap would help baseball, and it would help the parity in baseball. That people will point to the past of baseball has had parity in the past, but I think if you look at the last like 5-6 years, you see a lot of the Dodgers in the World Series. And I feel like people will point to what the Yankees haven't, but I feel like that's more of the Yankees not being as good at the Dodgers at being able to manage their money.
Well, I still say baseball is dying, but I mean, maybe you know something that I don't because I haven't watched it. So that's my take on it. And one more thing is something I went over on the other podcast regarding the Kansas City Royals. The Royals have said that they're going to move downtown in downtown Kansas City in the location where the Hallmark headquarters is. What do you think about that?
Crown Center.
Crown Center.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think it's a good move for them to be in a better, more accessible part of the city where they get to be, it feels like they're more part of the city and they're in a location that you can get to, I think, a little bit easier. Like, maybe not for if you're going to drive, because obviously if you probably want to drive anyway, but I do feel like them being in a part where you can have people just walk up to the stadium and have a better chance to just on an average day take a streetcar to the stadium and being able to sell tickets like that, I feel like that's going to be much better for them than where they are right now. You're muted. I
don't know what's going on. Okay, thank you, Jess. I said that is where we're going to end off. Any last words from you?
No, I think there's the Chiefs. They're entering in the new Chiefs stadium.
The Chiefs, yes. I will not be a Chiefs fan going forward once they move.
Well, I mean, I think the stadium in general, I think the structure of the stadium and it paying homage to old Arrowhead, I think makes a lot of sense. I know people are going to be upset about them moving to Kansas, but I mean, whenever you get offered a $3 billion stadium, you're going to take the $3 billion stadium.
I agree with that. I won't be there. I won't be watching, at least them. But yeah, congratulations to the Chiefs and fuck Quentin Lucas. Quentin Lucas and Frank White have let the city down so much. We could have had the Royals already in downtown. We could have had the Chiefs wrapped up in a stadium at Truman Sports Complex. But no, you have horrible leadership. We let the Chiefs go. We almost let the Royals go. So,
well, because you lost them to the big Jayhawkers. That's why. You lost them to the big Jayhawkers.
I'm not going to comment on that.
Big business in Kansas. Missouri losing a football team again for the third time.
He's a hater.
Reigning 3-time losers of NFL teams.
We're going to end it right there, folks. Thank you for joining. This has been the Ref-Horrendumb. I'm Big John, and that's Jesse J. You'll hear us next time.